Danny boy, Danny boy, Danny boy, I get knocked down. Chumbawamba. 1998. Or somewhere's about that. This episode of the Daily Vedantic is going to be about our duty when we get knocked down. We're doing a series, and this is the second episode on the Bhagavad Gita, a 20-part series of the 10 major themes and the 10 minor themes that are all 10 wildly under-discussed around the globe. But certainly, I didn't even come across the Gita until I was 30 years old, and it is the world's most famous poem with a kick-ass narrative arc to it of this warrior prince, Arjuna, who's about to fight this huge battle and has this complete breakdown. And the Gita is this dialogue between this warrior prince and his charioteer on what to do. We started the series with the last episode, so go check that out first if you want to. Or if you dig this one, you can hit subscribe and you'll get notified of the next ones. And you could also bounce around if you want to, because these are so profound, or like not only self-contained, but you could spend lifetimes just on one of these themes. In fact, it's said that if you can understand one verse in the Gita, truly understand one verse in the Gita, you're instantly realized. So having said that, let's get you realized by the end of this episode. All right, last episode, we talked about how you could sum up the whole Gita in 2 words. Now we're going to talk about one of those words that are mentioned, dharma, in a different context. The word dharma, like many words in Sanskrit, which is 10,000-year-old language. We have no idea how old it is. That word dharma could be, in slight sidebar, by the way, when studying a philosophy like Vedanta, you get to study the actual language that it has persisted in throughout its entirety. It's not this game of telephone where you go from Christ speaking in Aramaic, then it's translated to Greek, then from Greek it's translated to Latin, then from Latin it's translated to Old English, and then Old English translated to Modern English. There is none of that. And St. Jerome, you dirty rascal, year 400 AD, he mistranslated Christ's first public words as repent, as actual words in Greek, as best we know, because we don't have the Aramaic version, was actually transform your mind, not repent. Okay, done with the sidebar. Back to the word dharma. Dharma, you could spend 2 pages in English writing out the different translations for dharma, and it all depends on the context. Dharma means all of these things: truth, nature, law, teaching, duty. And it's profound that it means all of those things. Contextually, though, we're going to talk about dharma as duty. A major theme within the Gita is our duty to those around us. My teacher, Swami Parthasarathi, will often say that people should be concerned with their duties, not their rights, not what do I get for being here, more of what do I need to do to serve because I'm here. One generates energy, the other dissipates energy. And when we fall into our duty, as Swami also often says, nothing feels as good as doing what you ought to do. We're liberated by falling into our duty, by surrendering to our duty. The Gita emphasizes the surrender to one's responsibilities and duties through the concept of swadharma, which means your duty, your nature. Swadharma, your nature, your duty, is one of the most profound lessons within the Gita. And it actually goes so far as to say that it is better to die in your nature than it is to live in some foreign nature. This is so practical, applicable in our daily lives, because it speaks to the central tension in so many of our lives. A feeling we're called to do something, wired to do something, but feeling like, well, how would I pay the bills if I did that? Or that would be risky. Or this is the safer path. You know what? Being an investment banker, or trying to go and do this and be the doctor that my parents want me to be. Well, that's what I should do because I'll have familial peace, or I'll have financial freedom, hopefully, and yet you have inner turmoil. And this second major theme that we're talking about within the Gita is all about listening to what your swadharma is, your nature, because that's where you can best serve your community. It's not where you can go accumulate the most money or the most things, but it is all about where you can best serve your community. You might want to be the doctor in your village, but if you're wired to be the blacksmith, you might think, well, the doctor's going to get paid more and I already see the pats on the back that the local doctor gets, and I want that. But man, this work is not cut out for me. Yeah, it pays better, but you can't put a price on hating getting up each day. Well, people do all the time, but it's a pretty high price to pay. Versus the natural wiring for, man, I guess I'm just cut out to do this thing over here that isn't in the spotlight, but, well, it's just what I'm wired for. And then you become the most phenomenal blacksmith because you're actually wired for it, that you think, well, I want to belong in this community. I want this community to wrap their arms around me and validate my existence. And they won't do it unless I'm the local village doctor. And yet, when you go over and you fall into your swadharma, you become the best blacksmith that this village has ever seen, to where the community bear hugs you and they'll never let you go. Carl Jung, that's the example that he gives around individuation, around belonging, around this point in our lives where in our 20s, late 20s is what he believed, we go from trying to do all of these things that mimic all of the people that belong because we are chasing belonging, to then going out our own path, saying, man, none of that's working. All right, I'm just going to do X, Y, or Z that I am wired for. And yeah, I guess I'm not going to get those pats on the back, that admiration that I thought. And then you do that so wildly well, so wildly successfully, that then the very community that you so desperately wanted to belong to, they grip you like a vice. And it's everything that you wanted from them because you were not only detached from needing to belong, but because you surrendered into your nature and what you were wired for. Arjuna is this warrior prince that in the first chapter and part of the second makes this plea that we shouldn't be fighting this battle. We should be studying philosophy in solitude in the forest. And it is unbecoming of us to partake in something like this war. And it's called the spiritual bypass because he's using this very savvy justification to get out of this battle he doesn't want to fight. And his charioteer is like, what are you talking about? You're a warrior. You're not some forest-dwelling philosopher. You are a warrior. And there's nothing greater for a warrior than a righteous war in which your talents, skills, and courage can be used most optimally for the community that needs you to fight this battle. It's like Simba in The Lion King, being reminded who he is and realizing, all right, this thing I was so scared of that I've spent my whole life avoiding while I just live fat and happy in the jungle. I've got to go back and I've got to take my rightful place of who I am as king in the Pride Lands. Similarly, Arjuna is being told, this is what you need to do. Simba, as he's living fat and happy in the jungle, his whole family and everybody he knows and loves is suffering. They are all dying while he's living fat and happy. And Arjuna thinks that's what he should go do. And Krishna, the voice of wisdom, reminds him who he is and what would happen to the world if he didn't take up his duty, his swadharma. Tomorrow we're going to dive into action, right action, wrong action, and the yoga of service. So we'll see you then. This is the Daily Vedantic. Thanks for listening to the Daily Vedantic. This reflection is part of a free repeating 2-year course in Advaita Vedanta. Rooted in the timeless wisdom of the Upanishads, arguably the oldest philosophical texts on earth, you can begin with episode 1, which gives the 15-minute overview of the whole philosophy of Vedanta, or you can join the journey with any episode at any point. But the critical aspect of this course, of understanding and mastering anything, is to study and reflect, even for 10 to 15 minutes on the timeless each day, preferably at the start of your day. As is said in this philosophy, reflection is 100,000 times as powerful as listening. So listen, journal, sit with, discuss these concepts, or ask questions at thedailyvedantic.com with our AI-powered chatbot, informed by about 700 episodes here, as regularly as one can, if you want to see clarity and peace almost effortlessly unfold in your daily life. And if it doesn't result in a near immediate increase in clarity and peace, then toss aside and feel free to never listen again. One of the things that you might notice is after 7 or 8 days in a row, this doesn't feel like a discipline. This feels like a visit with a best friend to dive into the timeless with daily reflection. Within a few days, it becomes one of your favorite parts of the day. You can also find out more, including news about in-person events in Los Angeles and beyond, at the Daily Vedantic on Instagram, or through our weekly newsletter at thedailyvedantic.com. Additionally, check out the links in our show notes for more resources like the books that are mentioned most frequently in the episodes, including Vedanta Treatise, perhaps the simplest and most straightforward read on this philosophy I've ever come across. Until next time, and from the entire team that works on the Daily Vedantic project, thanks for listening.